I'm here with Heather Te Au-Skipworth, who is a new Hastings District Councillor. She was elected in a by-election last week for the Takitimu Māori ward of the Hastings District Council. Kia ora, Heather, and thanks for joining me.
Morena, Andrew. Thank you.
Congratulations on your election to Hastings District Council. How does it feel?
Very humbling, grateful, and yeah, just pretty much ready to get into the mahi. The campaign's done. The campaign's over, and it's time to do the mahi.
Now, there were two other candidates, Jason Whaitiri and Michael Nahuka, and you beat them by quite a considerable margin. Were you surprised that you won by so much?
To be honest, I was, because the initial voting counts that came out were really, really low. And I was a bit worried that, well, there's three of us, so the potential to split votes was, quite evident in the first voting count that came out, and it stayed low for quite a while. So I was, I was a bit shocked, but I thought, I'm going to throw everything at this campaign, even in the last few weeks. And had I not been successful, I would have been happy knowing I gave it my all.
Are you disappointed at the low turnout? And what does this say about people's engagement in the process?
Well, I wouldn't say disappointed at the low turnout and put that on the people. I would say I'm disappointed that we still have an archaic voting system.
Yeah.
And when people still haven't received their voting papers and are having to travel to various places to drop their forms, not understanding what they need to do if they haven't received their voting papers. So my disappointment sits with the archaic voting system more than our people.
Yeah. Now, yesterday you were, I suppose, inducted into the council at a formal ceremony. How did that go?
Oh, it was great. I was privileged enough to have a lot of support there. My hapu, Te Pakipakitanga o Hene Te Moa, lots of friends and extended whānau, and it was a beautiful day. It was really quite a beautiful day. And I swore an oath, but prior to swearing an oath, I swore my allegiance to He Whakaputanga and Te Tiriti o Waitangi, because had I not done that, then I am excluding my whakapapa and the whakapapa of this country.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Now, what happens now? What's first on the agenda for you as a new councillor?
Well, we sat in our first council meeting straight after the swearing in, and we hadn't been privy to a lot of the information. So really, it was just listening. Looking at the way various councillors ask questions, and it wasn't enough to say, I know everything that's going on, but we've got an induction period next week, so find out a little bit more about what we can and can't and should and shouldn't. So I'm looking forward to the induction next week.
Now, you're known for being able to work with people and that of all political persuasions, I suppose. What do you think of your new colleagues, and will you be able to work with them?
Well, I've always said we've actually in Heretaunga, we've got quite a progressive council.
Yeah.
And I think a brave one too. I think there's elements where we could do better, and where I think that is Te Tiriti o Waitangi education workshops for our councillors and our staff, and regular ones, because it's always good to do a refresher. So I think that's where we could all upskill ourselves and lead better as councillors. So yeah, but I'm actually quite happy. Yesterday I posed I wouldn't say a challenge, but more of I'm here to support you. And in my swearing-in statement, I said to my fellow councillors and the community that I'm fearless in these governing spaces, absolutely fearless. But I do not wish to be feared. I'm here to guide them on their tiriti training, on their tiriti journey, to relieve them of their fear.
And how did they receive that? Do you think there is an openness and a willingness to hold workshops on the treaty?
Well, I think the telling is that the councillors adopted Māori wards.
Yeah.
And the statement released last week by our mayor to continue with Māori wards, I think that's a telling sign that, you know, when there's rhetoric out there that incites fear, there will always be fear. But it's the way that people are educated and brought along on the journey to feel included rather than excluded.
How does it feel being elected to a position that the government is potentially trying to do away with, the role of a Māori ward councillor?
I'm not worried. I'm not worried because I know I'm a person that is well respected, not just by Māori, but non-Māori as well.
Yeah.
And I feel I've got a bit of time. Should that legislation pass, I've got a bit of time to be able to bring our whānau, and when I say whānau, I mean our community as a whole, together to understand the importance of Māori wards, and that it's not a privilege, that actually it's not a privilege for Māori, but that this is a privilege for all.
So apart from your sort of ideals, or you're pursuing a sort of tiriti workshops and that, what are the other things you're going to focus on first off as a councillor?
Well, Andrew, that's like asking a kid in a lolly shop with all their favourite lollies, what are they going to choose first?
Yeah.
I think my main focus would be to find out what's going on the inside.
Yeah.
Because as I said in my previous election, previous to being elected, was there's a lot of stuff that we as the community aren't privy to.
Yeah.
And now I'll have the privilege of being privy to that information, looking at all the different levers, and just making decisions that enhance and that can enhance the lives of all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that is noticeable about councillors when they get, well, people when they get elected to council, they sometimes do change. And sometimes there have been complaints in the past where sometimes, you know, closed sessions and almost a lack of transparency. What guarantee can you give the people who elected you and the broader ratepayer base of Heratonga Hastings that you will continue to uphold the standards of democracy and transparency as a councillor?
Well, I am what in Te Ao Māori there's a saying, kanohi kitia, which means somebody who's always out in the community. That doesn't stop because I'm an elected councillor.
Yeah.
So I will be front-facing people that will be able to hold me accountable. So nothing will change. When I was on the DHB, same thing. People would approach me. I was approachable. And as I said in the previous interview, I've mastered the art of listening.
Yeah.
And that's the important thing, is that councillors, I don't know whether the word change is the right word, but whether it's the obligations of being a councillor and understanding that there should be no boundaries.
Yeah.
When it comes to being transparent. I often struggled when I was on the DHB with public excluded papers, and you know, I know there's that happens at council, and I don't think it's for reasons of, not wanting to do things that aren't right. I think it's the attention to detail that the conversation needs to be had. But how do we ensure that the public's trust in us remains when we're doing things excluding the public?
Absolutely. And sometimes some people might say that it seems at council meetings that decisions have been made in meetings beforehand or workshops and that. Are you going to sort of still ask your questions and still stand your ground and have your point made in open council meetings?
Yeah, I think that's part of the education part, Andrew, is that there are subcommittees where a lot of the detail is discussed. But I think the pertinent detail needs to be brought to the open council meetings.
Yeah.
Because that's when you watch online and you hear, okay, this paper's been discussed. Are there any questions? No. Okay, do I have a mover? Do I have a seconder? And people are like, what the heck?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, yeah. So I think as much detail as possible needs to be brought in the open forums on the live stream, so people understand that we're not doing something dodgy, but that there's enough detail to give them confidence for us to be able to move and pass papers.
Now, it would seem like you've got quite a busy life as things are. How are you going to fit this into your life?
Well, actually, Andrew, I don't have a busy life. My busy life is being kanohi kitea, going out to community events and kaupapa, that where I can support the community. But now that I've on-sold Iron Māori, this is basic. Oh no, I've got another paid role, and that's the Iwi Māori Partnership Board. So I had council, I'm on the Iwi Māori Partnership Board, and I'm in a transition role for Iron Māori. So that's way more less mahi than I've had in the past.
Yeah.
And I never put my hand up for anything, Andrew, that I can't totally commit 100%.
Absolutely. Now, just moving away a little bit to another issue. Tomorrow is a big day for the country. It's budget day, but also Te Pāti Māori has called for basically a strike action. They're calling for people not to go to work in protest of the budget, and there are hikois and that planned around the country. What do you think of that, and are you going to be participating?
Well, I think some of the detail may have been left out of what the activation is all about. So they are calling for whānau to, if they can, to strike. If not, use other forms of activation, whether that be where kākahu Māori, educating our own about te tiriti or tangata tiriti. So there's a collective of us here, and we've got an activation tomorrow at the town clock from 7 to 8. And then for us, that means that we're not putting pressure on our whānau to have to not go to work and still feel inclusive in this activation kaupapa. So that's what we'll be doing here in Heretaunga tomorrow at the town clock.
And now, just generally, obviously there's a big hui coming up in Hawke's Bay at the weekend, looking at Māori unity, and I had an interview with Baden Barber, and he's keen for some sort of formalised structure, even a Māori parliament to come out of that. What's your views on that?
Well, we should never be afraid of evolution.
Yeah.
And I think, it's timely to have those discussions. We've been having them for a while, but I think it's time to start putting some strategies in place to move towards that. If Te Tiriti o Waitangi was honoured and upheld, we wouldn't be having these conversations. But there is another big kaupapa, Andrew, and because of the kotahitanga hui a motu is happening, there's another big, beautiful kaupapa with our opening of our new kura down Bennett Road.
Okay.
Yeah, Te Whare Tāpiri or Te Whare Wānanga o Te Whare Tāpiri. is having their opening on Saturday morning at 5 a.m. So sometimes there's so many beautiful kaupapa happening at once that, yeah, not all get talked about.
Absolutely. Well, Heather Te Au-Skipworth, thank you so much for your time. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and good luck.
Likewise.
All the best in your new role.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate you offering me these kōrero time.
No, that's all good. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Have a good day.